Welcome back, everyone. The Greymoor patch is on the PTS, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at all of the new sets that are coming with the Greymoor patch, as well as the big combat changes that are coming with this patch too. There's a big axe to the tank meta in this patch, so yeah, I'm really excited to see what PvP will look like after Greymoor. As always, I want to hear what you guys think about these changes. Do you like them? Do you hate them? What do you think PvP will look like in the new patch? And of course, I have got another video going over all of the big changes to the monster helms and the maelstrom weapons, and there's a link to that in the description below for you guys. And then the vampire changes I'll be going over on the PTS. I really want to try them out and show you guys what we can do with it. Without further ado, let's take a look at these patch notes. Alright, this is what you guys want to see. Let's take a look at those new item sets and talk about them. The first new set we've got is Winter's Respite, the light armor. Magicka Recovery, 2-piece max mag, and then on the 5-piece, casting an ability that leaves an effect on the ground will create a circle of healing frost for 10 seconds. You and your allies restore 2,358 health every 1 second while in this circle on a 10-second cooldown. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Honestly, I could see this synergizing really well with, again, something like a Templar, already throwing the healing rings down. Lots of other abilities and classes that can utilize this too. The next set that we've got is the Venomous Smite. Weapon crit, weapon damage. When you deal critical damage, you inflict Hunter's Venom on the enemy, dealing 2,241 poison damage to the target and nearby enemies every 1 second. And this is on a 15-second cooldown. So this appears to be some kind of a dot that procs off of your crits. Interesting. We have a lot of different dot sets in the game, so this is just going to help kind of stack those up. I do like sets like this because they do really help make a dot build shine. And the next heavy armor set we've got is Eternal Vigor. Mag recovery, stam recovery, health recovery, max health. 300 magicka and stamina recovery when your health is above 50%, and 1,000 health recovery when you are below 50% or less. This is a really good 5-piece. I am very interested to see how this will look in PvP, especially. I know that this looks really good, honestly. Either recovery you're getting on the 5-piece is fantastic. 337 magicka and stamina recovery is really sweet. And then the health recovery. This is kind of like a mix of Amber Plasm and Troll King in one set. Now, the next sets that we've got are the crafted set. And I really like the crafted sets. Every patch that they add new crafted sets, they do a lot of these kind of hybrid-esque sets. So let's take a look at it. Now, the first set we've got is Stun's Favor. I'm sure there is no pun intended there at all. We've got 129 weapon and spell damage on the 2-piece. Almost 1,500 penetration for both on the 3-piece. Another weapon spell damage line on the 4-piece. Now, before we continue, that's an incredible 2-3-4-piece. This is a crafted 2-3-4-piece, and it's going to be weapon spell damage, both penetrations, weapon spell damage again. Wow. And then the 5-piece, we increase the physical and spell penetration by 1335 against off-balance enemies. To give you guys a little bit of perspective of how much of a damage increase that is, that's like 20% damage increase. That's massive. This is going to be a very, very good set for the right kind of build. I cannot wait to try it to see how this plays out. And then the next set we've got is Dragon's Appetite. 129 weapon damage, 2-piece stamina recovery in the 3-4. Very nice there as well. Really good 2-3-4-piece. Increase the damage done to bleeding enemies by 225. Dealing non-bleed damage to bleeding enemies generates a persistent stack of Dragon's Appetite up to once per second. At 10 stacks, you consume the Appetite and heal for 6.4k health. Honestly, this set's 5-piece is interesting. More for PvE, I think, because in PvP, yeah, this won't be the best. Any stack sets in PvP aren't very good for the most part. And then finally, we've got Spell Parasite. We got spell damage, spell crit, max mag. When you deal damage, you restore 63 magicka, and this can occur once every 0.25 seconds. This will be very interesting, especially for something like a Magicka dot build, Magicka builds that are hitting lots of opponents, putting lots of ground AoEs, etc. More of a PvE set, again, for PvP. I can't see this being the best set. Now, of course, we have some new trial sets that are coming with the new trial as well. Spell Pen, we get Minor Slayer on the 3-piece, more spell damage, and then 5-piece Perfected Roaring Opportunist We get the max mag, and then the non-perfected version, there is no max mag. And then the rest of the 5-piece is going to be dealing damage with the fully charged heavy to an enemy that's been set off balance, grants you and 11 group members Major Slayer, increasing your damage done to dungeon, trial, and arena monsters by 15%. Very nice stuff. The next set we've got is the Stamina Medium DPS, Weapon Damage, Minor Slayer, Stam Recovery, Penetration on the perfected 5-piece. And then finally, we have the Dealing Critical Damage, grants you a stack of Giant's Endurance up to 1 second. Each stack adds 100 Stamina Recovery up to 5 stacks. And then when you deal damage with the fully charged heavy, you gain Giant's Might for 10 seconds, increasing your weapon damage by 158 per stack removed. You cannot have Giant's Endurance and Giant's Might active at the same time, so you kind of switch between these two. So that is a lot of weapon damage at 5 stacks, and then of course a lot of stamina recovery too. Very interesting set. Again, more PvE focused. It is a dungeon set. Then we've got a healing set that they're adding, Mag Recovery, Minor Aegis for the additional healing. 4% healing done, and then the perfected gives Magicka Recovery. Casting an ability or drinking a potion that applies a major buff on yourself or ally creates a pool of Kine's Blessing for 4 seconds. Your allies standing in the blessing restore 508 stamina and Magicka every 1 second. Holy man. Now, this is on a 10-second cooldown. That is a very, very strong regen, though. Now, I know this is a PvE set, but the sustain that this gives, this could be very good for PvP as well, just to help your group out. Really cool. And then finally, we've got the tanking set, Max Stem, Minor Aegis, Max Health, Perfected, Healing taken on the 5-piece. And then finally, after dealing damage with the fully charged heavy, you apply Major Aegis to you and up to 5 nearby group members for 10 seconds. That's going to be really nice for a tank, just kind of buffing up their team. They do lots of heavy attacks anyway. And then we are taking a look at those new mythic sets, guys. These are pretty OP, I'm not going to lie. Bloodlords Embrace the Heavy Chest. Dealing damage with a bash attack places a persistent uncleansable blood curse on an enemy. You can only have 1 blood curse enemy at a time, and dealing additional bash damage moves the blood curse. Blocking an attack from a blood cursed enemy restores Magicka on you. This is on a 1-second cooldown. For PvP, this could be incredibly strong on the right kind of build, but for PvE, I can also see that this will be a little bit easier and very strong to work as well. Yeah, man, this looks like a very, very good set for the right kind of build. And I think that's kind of the theme we're going to see with these mythic items. We got the Thracian Stranglers, Light Hands. So it's light armor gloves. Killing an enemy grants you a persistent stack of Sloat's Call up to 20 stacks, and they increase your spell damage by 150, but increase the damage you take by 2%. Removing crouching or going invisible will remove the stack. So this is a permanent buff on you. This is up to 3,000 spell damage from this set when you're fully stacked up. However, you will take 40% additional damage. So this is a very, very, very interesting set. Kind of a game changer for Magicka builds. I do not know how this will work in PvP. This could be incredibly strong, though, but also have that incredibly huge amount of backfire if things don't go well. Now, the next one we've got is Snow Treaders. You're immune to snare and immobilizations that can be cleansed. While in combat, you cannot sprint. Very interesting. Sprinting is very important for a lot of different builds in combat, especially when you start to play really high-level, fast-paced builds. Sprinting becomes an incredibly important technique that you use. So yeah, this set here I probably won't use myself, but it does offer some very interesting options. I think this is really for people who don't have a good counter to the Snare Immobilize. This is going to give them that counter. And then we've got Ring of the Wild Hunt. Increase your movement speed by 15% while in combat. That is a huge amount of movement speed. And then increase your movement speed out of combat by 45%. This is new meta. I don't know what to say about that. Holy man, this is like, we're just going to see everybody just like moving around at capped speed without sprinting with this new ring. Honestly, I don't think 45 will stick. That is an insane amount of movement speed. But it is out of combat. I'm not sure what ZeniMax will say. Node farming will change. We've got Malakat's Band of Brutality. Increase your damage done by 25%, but you cannot deal critical damage. I like this a lot, especially with the changes to the other sets that we have in the game. Generally speaking, the tank meta is taking a huge punch in the nuts this patch. This set here gives the tanks a damage option as well. We'll see how it plays out. I know that this won't give you good competition with something like a crit build unless you go for maybe that major berserk set. Then maybe you could have an insane tank damage build with the right setup. But yeah, very, very good and interesting set there again. And then finally, we have the tonal consistency. When your stamina is less than 50%, your mag recovery is increased by 450. And then while your mag is less than 50%, your stamina recovery is increased by 450. Interesting set. I can see this working for something like a sorcerer. Holy crap. A sorcerer just has to wear this and get so much sustain. Very, very interesting few things that we get here. There's only 6 of these one-piece sets that are coming so far. I know we'll see more in the future. So keep your eyes out, guys. Let me know what you think about these as well. And something that I think is really worth mentioning is they reduced the armor trait Impen down to 172, up from 258. Yeah, Impen took a huge nerf as well. The tank meta in general is taking a big punch to the nuts this patch. It's good for PvP, definitely. So let's see how this plays out. Impen, in my opinion, has been overpowered for a very long time. So this has been a long time coming. And some really exciting news for this patch. We have got 3 new Alchemy Reagents. Now, I know at first this may not seem like a PvP change, but it is. We've got the Crimson Nirnroot, the Vile Coagulant, and the Charis Egg, and these are all killed by, or attained by killing different kinds of monsters, and the new reagents can carry the new effect of Minor Timidity. That is awesome. We'll get to that in just a sec, but just the fact that we're adding 3 new reagents means that outside of the new effect, we will also be able to create new kinds of combination potions that we could not before. So it'll be really cool to see what kinds of potions we can make on the PTS. Now, getting on to Minor Timidity, it is the opposite trait of heroism, so it will drain your opponent's ultimate when you put it on them. That is very cool. So it'll be interesting to see how strong this is and what kind of an impact this has on PvP. Could this be Rip Dragon Knight? Who knows? And then Enchanting, we've got some exciting news that also affects PvP as well. There is a new Essence rune in Deco, which can be attained as bonus loot from the Antiquity system, and this can make Prismatic Recovery glyphs and reduce skill cost glyphs. Very, very cool. Now, Prismatic Recovery, of course, I don't have to explain why that's awesome. Reduced skill cost. Does this mean ultimates? I don't know, but something worth testing when we get on that PTS. I, of course, will be doing a follow-up video for you guys in about a day or two. So, yeah, we'll see. There have been some few changes to the Alliance War potions. They now mimic the Gold Coast Warrior Spellcaster and Survival Elixirs. This means that they grant the additional effects that those potions grant as well. So yeah, weapon damage, weapon crit, maximum stamina from your Alliance War potions now. That's a huge deal. And then, of course, potions that grant the detection bonus now properly apply their visual effects. This is huge. This means that you will have some sort of an indication when someone pops a detect pot, which is massive. If you've played a stealth build, you know how much of an issue it is to know whether you've been detected or not. So yeah, I do like that too. Now, a pretty big gameplay change that will affect higher level players: reduce the damage of bashing by 80%. Bash canceling is pretty much going to be not good anymore. This is not going to affect a lot of people, but especially someone like me who loves to bash cancel and did appreciate that additional 10-15% damage that it offered. It will only be more like 5% damage at the most. So yeah, bash canceling's not really worth it anymore at all. Let me know what you guys think about this one. And they increased the healing reduction on Battle Spirit to 60%, up from 50%. Rip tanks. This is going to be interesting as well. Healing is very strong even at the 50% reduction in PvP. So we'll see how this goes. Personally, I think that this is ZeniMax's answer to the fact that heals are just in general a lot stronger than outgoing damage in PvP at the moment. And this could perhaps be the fix for kind of the high amount of healing power we see in PvP without ruining the heals for PvE players. There have been some very minor changes to the classes as well. Dragon Knight's Fiery Grip only grants 1 stack of Empower rather than 2. The rest of the classes just received minor fixes to a few of their abilities. The Restoration Staff now functions more like the Lightning Staff. The first 2 ticks will have minor damage, and then the final tick will deal more damage at the end, rather than 3 continuous ticks of damage. And some huge changes to Werewolf as well. Hircine's Bounty, casting this ability while at full health, now restores stamina, and while this ability or its morphs are slotted, you passively gain Major Brutality. That is awesome. You no longer have to cast this to get the weapon damage buff. Hircine's Rage, casting this at full health, now grants Major Berserk for 6 seconds, but also causes you to take additional damage. How much additional damage we'll have to see? Major Berserk is an insane buff. Wow, that is big. So your heal can potentially be a massive buff now. And then the Hircine's Fortitude, this ability now also increases your health and stamina recovery by a small % of the healing caused with a cap, as well as continues the increase to increase the base healing of the ability. So really good changes to the Werewolf healing skill there. Piercing Howl, this ability and its morphs now deal 10% more damage to enemies who are facing you. Okay, and they decrease the damage bonus of Howl of Agony to 25%, down from 33%, but it now also works on enemies who are facing you. So this will be about 2% more damage in the end if you get the optimal positioning from your opponent. And then Pounce, this ability has now become Carnage. For 5 seconds after casting it, it will allow you to quickly rend your target, causing them to bleed for 10 seconds with an aggressive execute scaling bonus. So similar to the Poison Injection bleed, I would assume. Very cool. And it says aggressive execute scaling bonus, so I'm not sure how powerful it will be, but I assume that this is going to be kind of the go-to for execute. The Brutal Pounce morph will now override to Brutal Carnage, converting it to a conal attack. Each time an enemy is hit by the Brutal Carnage, you gain extra weapon damage up to a maximum of 6 times. Again, it doesn't state the value here. We'll have to get on the PTS to test. And then Feral Pounce, dealing damage with the initial hit for the override Feral Carnage, grants stamina in addition to extending the time you stay in werewolf form. Okay. And then Roar. This ability now causes enemies to become off balance for 7 seconds. While slotted, this ability and its morphs passively grant Major Savagery. I like this a lot. It's adding the full buff Major Savagery, Major Brutality buff kit to Werewolf passively, which I think they definitely could use. And yeah, the off balance, we don't have to talk about why that's awesome. 15% additional damage, stun them with the heavy attacks, really good stuff. Deafening Roar, this morph now also applies minor maim to enemies for its duration. And then Ferocious War, this morph now increases your heavy attack speed by 33% for its duration. Wow, man. Heavy attacks on the werewolf are very strong. This could be very good. Werewolf actually seems to have gotten some pretty huge buffs here. And then Werewolf Transformation, this morph no longer causes you, your dire wolves, to apply minor maim to enemies when they deal damage. Instead, while they are transformed, you gain 10% damage mitigation, and you passively grant you and other 11 allies minor courage. Now, the minor courage buff is 256 additional weapon and spell damage. Yeah, man, Werewolf looking really sweet in this coming patch. Vampire got some big changes too, but that's, of course, gonna come in a new video for you guys. There were a few fixes to these abilities here. For the most part, no changes, other than 1 or 2% in healing. And then Alliance War, Barrier increased the ultimate and its morphs to 250 up from 200 in total cost. So yeah, that is going to be a little bit of a nerf for Barrier, but it is a very good group ultimate nonetheless. So there you go, guys. All of the new sets coming with this patch, as well as some huge changes to Werewolf, a bunch of other combat changes, and in general, we're looking at just the loss of the tank meta. I hope with this new patch, it seems like everyone is going to have a tough time staying as bulky. Healing's not going to be as good in PvP. So it'll be very interesting to see how the game looks going forward in Greymoor. I would love to hear what you guys have to think about all of these new sets, as well as the changes to Werewolf and the general changes that we're seeing for combat this patch. Be sure to check out my other video detailing all of the changes to the monster sets as well as the arena weapons. There are some massive changes there, and again, it reflects the fact that ZeniMax is taking an axe to this tank meta. And finally, be sure to check out my review of the vampire changes. I'll be getting on the PTS to do it, so look forward to that in a day or two. We feature the top 5 PvP battles on my channel, so if you guys want to send in your clips for the top 5, or if you guys want to send in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Give me a follow on Twitter to keep up to date with my shenanigans. You can always check me out on Twitch if you guys want to see some live gameplay from me. I've got a website, KristoferESO.com. I've got my builds on there. It is also a hub for all of my ESO content, so be sure to check that out. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers, free to try for the first month via the link in the description below. They can help give you better ping to your favorite games, so give them a shot if you guys want to try it out. And of course, a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this job, so thank you so much for allowing me to have this opportunity. And if you guys are interested in supporting the channel, you can always become a patron yourself. But thank you so much for watching the video. As always, I hope to see you guys next time, and have a great night, everyone.